Welcome to the 80-20 Baseball Podcast. Strike! The 80-20 Coaching Masterclass. Our weekly get-together where coaches go from new to good and good to great. Mastering the fundamentals and the art of coaching.
Welcome, everyone. Great to be here with all of you. Our weekly get-together where I'm trying my best to bring you a much better way to play and coach baseball, combining a high level of experience with 2 decades of coaching and studying thousands and thousands of coaches and their strategies, curating those, optimizing those, improving upon those to have a coaching system that is second to none. Can't believe it's already June. I was watching some regional college baseball playoff action, all the different levels, and baseball is popping. I'm sure a lot of you don't follow college baseball super closely, but there's some interesting storylines going on. For example, at the Division I level, where you have teams that would be considered by pretty much anybody way less talented on paper, but they won their regionals. In other words, they won their first round pool play and are moving on to the round of 16, essentially the Sweet 16 for college baseball at the Division I level. This makes me think of the misunderstanding of needing a talented roster to have a successful season. Now, of course, timing and sometimes things come together on certain days or over the course of a weekend. That definitely plays into it. But when we have schools that most people don't even know where they're located, making it to the Sweet 16 in college baseball, in an era of NIL money where the big schools are able to pay players so much more, and the cream of the crop talent-wise is really just going heavy to these schools, well-coached programs, well-coached teams can absolutely beat teams that are more talented on paper. It's important to keep in mind that really good coaching can beat talented teams that aren't coached up as well. I'm not saying they can go undefeated against those teams. Sometimes teams just get hot on a certain weekend or over the course of one tournament and they ride that wave. But when we go out there with a team, coaches or players, if you go out there and play a team that we think is or we perceive to be more talented, that doesn't mean we don't have a great chance of winning the game, because we do. And by checking in each week here and digesting all the stuff at 8020baseball.com, you're going to have a leg up when it comes to training better for baseball. Speaking of a leg up, I have been putting out almost every single day what I'm calling the Diamond Insight series, collection of videos. I'm trying to keep them all under 5 minutes. I've been posting them on social media, but they're on YouTube also, and I'm going to start putting these on the website. These are for coaches and specifically players to learn how to play the game, to level up our baseball IQ very efficiently. So these are fast-paced videos that are showing things that happen during the game that we can learn from and be one step ahead of when we get to our next game. A few days ago, I put one out talking about drag bunts or bunting for a base hit. And this made me think about, over the years, I've mentioned the word drag bunt. If you're a baseball person, if you've been in baseball for a long time at a high level, when somebody says drag bunt, that basically means any bunt down the third base line by either a lefty or a righty. That said, originally the term was for left-handers dragging the bat behind them, essentially trying to get out of the box almost at the same time or even before they make contact with the ball, to get a head start down the line. So they would drag their bat behind them and just bunt the ball down the third base line, and or bring it with them down the first base line. So I wanted to clarify that. I did have some comments on some of those posts. When I say drag bunt, and the baseball community by and large, when they say drag bunt, they just mean a bunt down the third base line for a base hit, and the occasional left-hander bringing it with them. Although I call that walking the dog, and that's most commonly what it's called, where a left-hander brings it down the first base line right behind them. So the ball will literally be following them down the line. As they're running to first, it'll follow them down the line, hopefully a little on the fair side. So if I say walking the dog, that's what I mean. If I say drag bunt, that's a right-handed or a left-handed hitter late show bunting for a base hit down the third base line. And a push bunt is a bunt that typically you'll see right-handers push bunt right toward the second baseman. So they'll bunt it toward the second baseman, just past the pitcher, kind of in that no man's land area in the infield. Lefties can do this also, and this can also be done toward the shortstop, depending on which way the pitcher falls off the mound. The angle of the push bunt, or if a push bunt is going to second base or to shortstop, that depends on which way the pitcher falls off the mound, if indeed they do fall off the mound. And when I say fall off the mound, they fall to one side. There are a lot of pitchers that fall left or right after they throw the ball. Of course, we would want to bunt to the side opposite of the side they fall to. And then there's the occasional push bunt that actually goes over the pitcher's head, although that's a high risk, low reward in my opinion. Not worth it move, but I've seen that where hitters are literally, they'll push it over the pitcher's head, a little blooper over their head into that no man's land in front of second. But anyways, I wanted to clarify the drag bunt. When I say drag bunt, I just mean base hit, late show, bunting for a base hit down at third base line. If I say lefty walking the dog, that means they're late showing and they're just bunting the ball down the first base line, kind of right behind them as they run down the line. And then you have your push bunts and your sacrifice bunts and your safety squeeze bunts and your suicide squeeze bunts. All right. I've been seeing some dads fighting at games, coaches going after umpires, kids throwing baseballs at the other team's dugouts. Hey, I'm on record here saying we need to lay the hammer down on this stuff. And sometimes I get pushback. People reach out and say, hey, they think it's a little firm. I go, well, if you're not firm, it's just going to get worse and worse. It's not even about having a zero tolerance. That's just a start. But suspending or banning coaches from coaching for extended periods if they act a fool, banning them from being near the field. Like, hey, you got to watch the game. You got to be 100 feet from the field. And you go, well, Coach Bo, we don't want to penalize the kid. Yeah, we're penalizing all the kids by allowing this terrible behavior. I'm okay kicking a kid and his family out of the league because the parents can't behave in the bleachers. If that saves all the other 10-year-olds from having to watch one of the dads start punching the poor umpire. Yeah, I'm okay with that. So I'm seeing this just in the last week. I've seen videos of a coach punching an umpire, dads fighting each other. But I think leagues need to stop saying, but we need coaches. Not that kind of coach. Yeah, we need the coaches like all of you that show up here and are in it for the right reasons, doing it for the right reasons. So just really frustrated. I'm seeing that. So those of you that are higher up in your leagues, you got to start dropping the hammer on this stuff. Don't be nice about it. Because if you're nice to that adult that's completely out of line and completely out of control, you're not being nice to the kids. And the kids need it, not that grown adult who's acting a fool. So we need to step up and just start kicking them out. Kick them out. And if it's fans that are acting a fool, forfeit the game. It's done. And we all know what happens when we start dropping the hammer on things like this. Magically, most of it goes away. Not all of it, but much of it goes away. Imagine that. So I had to get that off my chest there. A little frustrated seeing some of that, but hey, that's why we're here trying to do our part to make the youth baseball world much better, a much better experience for all our kids. Speaking of trying to make it a better experience, I have some really good interviews lined up. In fact, I have 2 scheduled to be recorded this week. One is going to talk a lot about arm care and prepping your arm for a future as a pitcher, for all those pitchers that want to pitch down the road, ways to maximize long-term success as a pitcher. And I have another one lined up. We're going to discuss a really cool youth baseball app that involves some really cool things for players to utilize. So I'm excited about those 2. And I'm crossing my fingers to bring on an umpire who went viral over the past couple weeks. So I'm working on that. So getting an umpire on here. Hopefully that works out because that would be really awesome. All right, couple quick topics today. It's very important that we avoid the extremes. So as coaches, we don't want to go out there and be so strict that we have no fun. We want to be balanced as coaches. I saw a post by a principal of a school basically sharing out that, hey, kids like a strict coach. They like a strict teacher. They like strict parents. They like strict. And he said they may not always like it in the moment, but they'll like it in the long run. And I agree with this point overall, but I said they do not like strict coaches, strict teachers, strict parents if that strictness starts turning into micromanagement, right? Strict is good. Micromanagement is an extreme version of being strict. Being strict is one thing. Being so strict that you are now micromanaging everything, kids hate that. Kids like it when there are expectations, standards, rules. They just don't like everything being micromanaged. So we want to make sure that when we're out there coaching, we pick and choose our battles. We are clear about what's important for us to enforce, the important standards or rules that we want to have. Be strict and firm with those. Don't bend on those. Never break on those. But don't micromanage everything. A couple things that I am super strict about. Baseball bats being swung. If kids are swinging baseball bats in an area or anywhere near where they shouldn't be or at a time they shouldn't be, that is something I am the strictest about. I am very strict about kids randomly throwing baseballs, errantly just throwing baseballs at practice or whatever. That's a no-go, and that's one of the very few things that'll get my voice and tone to another level. But if a kid's jersey comes untucked a little bit on the backside, that's not going to get me all riled up. Kids not hustling out on the field, that'll move my interest level up a little bit, my firmness, my tone a little bit. Not as much as kids swinging bats wildly or making random throws, but that moves it up. So just pick and choose. Yelling at a kid because a ground ball goes through his leg, that's not happening for me. Micromanaging the kids, no, I'll micromanage the environment, but not the kids so much. If the kids want to tease each other a little teasing, I'm fine with. Healthy banter, I'm fine with. That's what kids do. And it's okay because it teaches them how, in a safe environment, how to get used to that as they get older. They're going to have thicker skin. But I'm not for bullying or blatant disrespect. No, not at all. A little healthy banter, some joking. Yeah, instead of just shutting that down, I might even teach the other side of how to play off of it. Teach them a little improv. Yes, and. But if it's a clear bullying, or especially if a group of kids start picking on or bullying up on one, I'm going to drop the hammer on that. Just wanted to talk about this. I saw a post on from a coach, and he's a principal, and he said, hey, kids love strict. And I thought, they do, they like strict, but they don't want everything to be strict and micromanaged. So it's a healthy balance there. Be strict, pick and choose the battles that you want to be strict on. And for the rest of it, take a deep breath and see how it plays out. Real quick, before we go to topic 2, big shout out to all of you that have got the coaching system. There's 3 options over at 8020baseball.com, 3 options for you to choose from. All of them are guaranteed to get your team better. I break down each drill on my 75-inch touchscreen. The videos of those drills, of the routines, of everything are triple edited. It's every drill you'll need to run the best practices in your area. I guarantee it. And unlike most coaching plans that I see that are just whipped together and sold online to make a buck, not only did I put 35 years of experience into this was built out over years and had a crazy amount of thought into every detail behind every second of the drill or the routine. I do that so you get the best system possible, the best coaching system, the best baseball system possible, while also having the easiest time implementing it. It's right there at 8020baseball.com. Even if you just use half of it or a quarter of it, you will feel like you got your money's worth. I guarantee it. If you don't, I'll refund your money. Think about a system that not only is built by myself, who played 4 years of Division I college baseball at a top tier program, played professionally, been drafted twice, coached high level, coached players from 6U all the way up to major leaguers. I coached my first team almost 23 years ago, a team that actually had a few future major leaguers on it. But not only that, the system's been built using the 80-20 principle. So all of these better ways to build out stuff to scale. And on top of that, it's essentially like every drill was curated through the knowledge and experience of seeing drills that teach up that particular thing. Hundreds and hundreds of those drills. Essentially, you get a curated version that's then filtered through the lens of high-level systems thinking from a guy who played high-level college, high-level pro. For example, after just watching one of the drill videos, the fast-paced drill tutorial videos, when I break down a drill and you see it so you can go implement it, you'll see the quality reps that are typically left on the table for a drill similar, or when that skill or event is being coached or practiced or trained. You'll see right away where there are so many quality game-like reps, competitive elements that can be implemented. You'll see where all of those things could be improved. Right away, you'll see the difference. I guarantee it. Shout out to all the coaches that have got it. Got an email yesterday from a coach, said that he loves using it. All right, a second quick topic here. The 80-20 principle, big believer in that, of course, 80-20 baseball. It isn't the only thing 80-20 baseball is built on, of course, but hey, you got to pick one name, and a name at the end of the day is not that important. What's important is the information, the content, and how it works. That said, the 80-20 principle, where we're coaching up the big needle movers, different things move the needle more than others. So applying the 80-20 rule, the 80-20 principle, making sure that we allocate our practice and training time accordingly to what moves the needle the most and what doesn't, and to what extent when it comes game time or when our players are getting measured on their success. There's also an 80-20 within the 80-20. So when talking to our team right before a drill starts, I highly recommend highlight a key mistake followed by the solution or what you'd like to see them do for the most common mistake or error that they are likely to make during that drill or routine. So a typical drill or routine might have, like, let's say 10 different mistakes or types of mistakes, or 5 different types of mistakes that players will make. Identify the one and a second, but that's risky. I don't really like going to the second one unless you trust your team to be able to take in 2 different things that you're working on and apply it and be aware of it at the same time. But that most common mistake or error that you've seen your team make, or the most common mistake or error that you've seen players make in this particular skill training or drill. For example, 80-20 baseball system has a pickles drill, rundown drill. Easily the best rundown drill you can do at the youth baseball level. My number one rule when we're doing rundowns or pickles on defense, the number one thing that I bring up right before is I tell them, when you catch the ball, you are sprinting at the runner. You are sprinting at the runner. And I say the only time you wouldn't sprint at them is if they're already to the next base. Okay, then chasing them, of course, doesn't make sense because they're already a long ways away. At that point, then you would just catch and throw. Typically, runners that get in a pickle are usually in the middle somewhere. They're not all the way back to the other base. I tell the players, once you catch the ball, to start the rundown, or when you catch the ball during a rundown, during a pickle, the first thing you do is you accelerate hard and fast right at that runner. Close that gap, put some pressure on them. Now, this is where you might add a second thing for the advanced players, for an advanced level, maybe 13, 14 kids that really know the game. You say, if you're running them back to the base they came from, you're sprinting at the runner thinking tag. Now, of course, they're not always going to tag them because a good runner is going to take off and try to get back to that other base. And if they do, then we give up the ball and try to get that tag as they're diving back into the base. Now, at the advanced level, I would say we will run hard at them if we're running them to the next base. If we're running them ahead, so like a rundown between third and home. If we're running them toward home, yeah, you might initially run. Your first couple steps might be like acceleration. You might go like a gangbuster for a couple steps, maybe 3. But if that runner bails and starts heading home, you're giving up the ball sooner. So that rule would be when we get the ball, we are closing that gap fast with the understanding that if we're running them toward the next base, especially home, we're going to give it up a lot sooner. Worst case, if we run it back and we give it up late, if they're running back to the previous base, they're just back to where they started. So I'm sure all of you can track what I'm saying there. But at the lower levels, 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, I would start the drill like this. All right, players, we're doing pickles. We're doing the pickles drill. Real quick, before we set up, I want to make sure that I see this out of all of you. You catch the ball and you close that gap hard. You close that gap. You run right at that runner immediately. You sprint toward the runner. And then from there, decide if you tag or throw. You're running hard at that runner right as you catch it. You sprint at that runner. Try to get a tag. If not, give up the ball. Now, there's a lot of things you could cover on a pickle. You got to get the ball in this hand. You got to get the ball in that hand. You got to arm fake. You got to create a lane. You got to be inside. You got to be outside. The number one mistake players make in a pickle is they don't close that gap hard and they jog after the runner. Essentially just creates a much longer pickle than is necessary, a much longer rundown. And the more throws in a rundown, the better the chance for the runner. And most runners will just fold if you sprint at them. A lot of runners will fold if you run at them hard and create the tag right off the bat, or force them to the next base where they got to turn and run hard. You give up the ball. They're committed to that base. Now the teammates got it for a quick tag. So that's one example of the 80-20 within the 80-20. The biggest needle mover within one of those overarching big needle movers, like rundown defense, pickle defense. Give them that one big needle mover before you start to drill. Notice how I gave the solution. I didn't really get into the mistake of players jogging after it. I said, hey, this is what I want to see. So really give them the solution, give them what you want to see, and really just give them 1 or 2 main things that you want to see. And then from there, you can address each individual player that makes a mistake. Of course, there will be different mistakes made during the drill. I would address those with those players, with that player, or those specific players individually, right? Cover the big needle mover with the team, maybe 2 big needle movers, but then discuss all the other mistakes individually when needed, as necessary, and then go from there. All right, everybody, as you can tell, I try to bring my A game each and every time. Next week, we got the top 5 coaching posts of the month as seen on X, and should have at least one of the 2 great interviews that I have lined up. So we'll be here next Tuesday for our weekly get-together where we become the best coaches, the best baseball players that we can be. Until next week, let's keep taking care of our health so we can be at our best for our families, our close friends. We can be at our best out there on the baseball field. All right, everyone, y'all take care. Until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Podcast, the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. We got this. Now, let's take the field.